A little advice. A little advice. Come on, yeah. Just a little advice. Just a little advice with Christine Little. Check it out.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Little Advice Podcast, a podcast where I, comedian Christine Little, gives a little advice to one of my guests. And I feel qualified to give this advice because I read a lot of self-help books and I got a major in psychology. I didn't work in it per se, but I read self-help books. This is episode number 16 with Daniel Weingarten. You'll hear that I have some trouble saying his name. He's a comedian, writer, a filmmaker. He also makes a lot of really funny videos online you can check out. We talk about social anxiety. And I think that a lot of people have social anxiety and that it stems from different places for different people. So his story is pretty interesting of where his social anxiety started from. Podcast related, if you want to talk more about the episode, please head over to the Facebook group and join the Little Advice Podcast group. Go ahead and like the Little Advice Podcast page. That's a tongue twister, am I right? And that would be great. Please share, review, give 5 stars. Just scroll down in the app. It's really easy to at least just do the star thingy. Write a review would be like extra brownie points, and I'll give you a shout out on here. I don't have any shout outs this week. Nobody left a review. I'm tempted to leave a review this week. I ordered this TV from Amazon through Best Buy, and it's a 32-inch, and it's not at all. It's a lot smaller than that. I should have known by the price, and then I wrote them. I was like, this isn't 32 inches, and they're like, if you times this by this and that, technically it's 32 inches. I'm like, I don't want to be a math major, just buy a TV. Anyway, sorry, that's my personal problem. If you guys have any advice on that, please let me know. And with no further ado, this is episode number 16 with Daniel Weingarten. Thank you for listening to A Little Advice. I am here with Daniel Weingarten. Hi, Daniel.
That was a real effort to say my name, Christine Little.
We were just talking about, I have so many people on here. I'm like, how do I say your name?
But mine's so easy. It's literally a garden of wine. So you just have to say Weingarten.
But there's this T in there for no reason, right?
I mean, there's a reason for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's German.
Watch your arms with the microphone.
Okay.
I just did his podcast, which is coming out soon. What's your podcast called?
Jalapeno Business.
I get it.
Yeah. And then we get up all up in your business. It's a food fun.
That's hilarious. Well, I just did his, and he kind of went on this rant with me about how he's like, people can't say my name. It's so easy. It's Daniel Weingarten. And then I'm like, Garten is it?
Just people trying to do too much,
I'm doing too much.
You're giving the name too much credit. It's very simple.
Maybe change the T to a D then.
I could, no, but then it changes the name.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Then stop complaining, I guess?
I could. I'm not really complaining.
I guess we just solved Daniel's problem.
All right, well, that was a good episode. See you next week.
But what is your problem?
My problem is, what we were talking about, social anxiety.
You sound like you don't even want to talk about that.
Which is probably why we should talk about it.
Oh,
see, we just flipped the perspective.
Someone's got therapy later. I'm the back alley therapist that you're going to?
I have therapy tomorrow with my therapist.
Okay.
But, don't take if anything, she should take offense to the fact that I'm here with you.
Not really.
I mean, not truly.
It's like a podcast. I asked you to do it, and...
No, I know. No one's actually taking it.
But you know what? You should send her a recording of this episode.
I will not send her a recording of this episode. Although I'm sure we'll cover some of the stuff. I bet you some of the stuff that we end up talking about today will come up in the session tomorrow.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And then you can just be like, oh, we don't need to touch on this. I've already worked this out.
Yeah, I already know what I need to do. I have the tools to be able to cope with this. It's all about getting the tools.
You have so much background in, therapy stuff. I think you'll be like...
No, I've only been in therapy for 4 months.
Really?
Yeah.
But you read a lot of self-help too. We probably have the same qualifications.
I know you definitely have way more than me. But my self-help is more just like, it's very conceptual. There's not, it's very much just like on like perspective and I think it's maybe a little bit broader than some of the self-help books that you read, where there's actually like hard-lined like tools and processes.
Yeah.
Whereas like my tools are just limited to whatever my therapist has given me.
Well, just because I read them doesn't mean I actually do them. That's part of the reason I'm doing this podcast. I'm like, well, I'm not doing this stuff. I learned some stuff. I'd love to tell other people about it. Although I am doing the healing codes, which I
what
briefly
are the healing
talked
codes?
about.
Oh,
on
that's
your
right.
podcast.
Yes.
And but it's only been like less than a week, so we'll see how long I do them. But
Gotta
they're really
keep it
fun.
up.
Yeah.
Remind me,
everything.
I didn't do my pages or meditation this morning.
I didn't do those either,
I haven't
just woke up.
I haven't missed a meditation in a while. Ooh. But I also haven't been hungover in a while. So
yeah, you had a party that I was not invited to.
In all fairness, it was my girlfriend's birthday.
Yeah, but I met her once.
You met her one time, and we only had like really close friends.
We were best friends
for 3 hours.
Exactly.
You're right. You're totally right. I apologize. I will let her know that you are unhappy with her.
Good.
And the lack of invites sent your way.
Maybe if there's pictures, because we're friends on Instagram, I'll just like comment on pictures. Looks fun. And
okay.
Passive aggressive stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So anyway, your problem, what is it?
Just social anxiety, just in general, just interacting with people and overthinking the way that I am being perceived and looking back on social interactions and overanalyzing them. It's a lot of work.
How was last night?
Last night was fine.
Is it with just people you don't know as well?
It's with people that I don't know as well. Yeah, or people, and I don't have a lot of like very close friends. Aww. What? No, it's fine. Like I have my like handful of friends that I'm really close with.
Yeah.
And that's all I really need.
It's true.
You know, like I have like if there's something going on in my life, there's like 3 people I would call.
Yeah.
Outside of my parents, there's like 3 people.
That's a good gauge of like your friends, like who you'd be excited to tell stuff to after something happens. I just call my mom.
Yeah. It's just like, and most people it's like, oh, I'll like tell them if I come across them. But not even that, it's more so like that I would trust their advice and who I feel actually know me because we've had conversations about like who we are as people. Because I feel like most of the interactions that we have with people are pretty surface level. Mm-hmm. And they're very like transactional. They're very much like, oh, here's a little information about me. Here's a little information about you. How you been? Oh, I've been good. What have you been up to? But like, especially nowadays, how often do people on any like massive scale like sit down and really like talk about things and get someone's like philosophy on the way that they like see the world or the way that they see themselves?
Yeah.
And on like what's important, what's not. So when it's all this like surface level stuff, I think maybe the anxiety comes from the fact that there's so much misinterpretation that can come of it, and knowing that can give me anxiety.
Is it like a particular social situation that you feel that even more? Do you feel that here now with the people you just met, or is it?
No, I didn't meet with them. It probably has to do more so if it's work or career related.
Okay.
So if it's at a club, if it's at a club, if it's stand up related, if I'm working at a club, right, like the manager, the wait staff, or whatever, or if you have a meeting or something, or you meet someone for the first time, I think that's where a lot of it may come from.
So you feel like the stakes are a little high in terms of,
I guess, because that's like your reputation.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like if it's purely social, it's okay, we're either going to click or we're not going to click on like a friend sort of level, and that's just life, and like I can accept that, and like there are people that are not going to like me, and that's fine. I think it's having that same acceptance out like in a sort of like business or like career sense.
Yeah, but you're not like a dickhead, so what do you know what I mean? Like you're not.
No, yeah.
You're not like.
Well, I think sometimes I like worry. Well, it's not even that I worry. It's just like here's the thing. Like I try my best to just be like nice to people and to not be a dickhead exactly. But then I'll be like, oh, what if people just think that that's all like fake? And it's like, and I'm like, this like phony, you know what I mean? Because I've met those people that I'm like, that I feel that about
who are
them.
they? Oh, okay.
You
so
know,
tell me about those people, like what you think about them and who they tend to be. You don't have to name names,
no,
obviously.
Yeah.
But...
Well, because they what ends up happening is you meet those people, and then I don't know. Sometimes there's something that just feels like false about it, right? And then you find out. Then you'll like talk to someone and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's what it is. I think Michael Blaustein has a joke that everybody's been working on. He's like, you ever meet somebody who's just like happy all the time? It's like they murdered a dog 10 years ago, and now they're like trying to like make up for it.
And you're afraid that you're coming off as so happy that people are like, how many dogs has he murdered?
I'm not worried about it coming off so happy because I'm definitely not. But yeah, sometimes, I mean, you know, it's...
You don't want to be perceived as being disingenuous.
1,000%.
But you said with those people, like, say you met someone and you're like, there's something false about them, and then you talk to someone later and they're like, they tell you something and you're like, oh, that's what I'm picking
I mean,
up on.
ultimately, it's like, it's a process. It's not like I'll have an interaction and then I'm like stewing in it for days, right?
Right.
It'll be like, I'll run into someone I haven't talked to in a while.
You don't get a good vibe from them.
Oh, no, but I'm saying from the standpoint of like me analyzing situations, right, that give me anxiety, it'll be like, I kind of like sit in it for like 30 minutes and I'm like, oh, I wonder how like this can, and then I'll just, it's always the same thing. I come to a realization, I go, look, man, you're just being you. And if they want to see you away, that's fine. And if they don't, that's fine. It's the same sort of just like, it's getting to the point of accepting that that you have no control over the way that people perceive you.
Exactly.
The only thing you have control over is what you put out there. And if somebody thinks that you're disingenuous, that's fine. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to happen. I'm sure there's people that think that, right? And maybe there's not. But either way, it's the whole thing. It's like, there's people that don't like me. I'm sure, you know, for whatever reason. But that's okay.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's that acceptance.
Yes. And also what I was going to say earlier with those people who you do find to be like, oh, there's something false about them, and then you find out later that maybe your suspicions are confirmed. You don't have that thing about you anyway. So chances are someone who perceives you that way as disingenuous, they're not going to find anything to really validate that except for their own lens and the way they want to look at you.
But at the same time, maybe they will. You know what I mean? Like maybe they'll be like, I've been doing stand-up for 8 years.
They'll
like,
find
here's
evidence.
Well, what's the thing? Like I've been doing stand-up for 8 years since I was like 18 or whatever, right? So like, I'm sure 26.
I wasn't counting.
Oh, you're counting. That's very good. But it's
no,
like,
I literally wasn't.
But it's like I also like I'm not a perfect person, right? Like I'm sure I've been an asshole to somebody. 1,000%, right? Whether I meant to or whether I didn't, or whether I was just in a bad place and I was just mean to someone, and then in that situation, that's a fact of life. You know what I mean? Like we all have moments in which we falter as human beings because none of us are perfect, and then it's just about like putting yourself on the path of just trying to become a better person and correcting the behaviors of your past and just trying to avoid those things. And it's just accepting that. It's accepting that like we're all a work in progress and none of us are perfect. And there's no point in trying to be perfect and trying to be this thing that like no one's going to think anything negative about because that's impossible, right? And it's just getting to a point in which you're confident and happy with the person that you are and comfortable with having that person exist in the world and accepting that like it may not all be positive, but that's okay because you know that what you're doing is right with you because that's all you can control.
It sounds like you've thought a lot about this.
Yeah, I reflect on it, you know, because that's the thing is like one of my imperfections is it's the whole like I don't care what anyone thinks. Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I do. Right, and it's like it's a two-pronged thing. It comes from insecurity, right? Because I was always not. I lacked acceptance growing up.
Is acceptance
from just like social, like in school and stuff. Like I was never like in high school. I would like pretend to be on the phone with my mom during lunch because I had no one to sit with. By the way, of all the things to pretend to be on the phone with, how uncool was I that I thought that pretending to be on the phone with my mom was a good way out of
And no, I'm talking to my mommy.
Mom.
I do have friends.
It was always like something very serious. It was like, no, Mom, I understand. Like, it was always like some code red thing. But like,
and people are like, what's going on in Daniel's home?
Right, yeah. There's there's always something going on.
Every day. He's like, is his mom
so like, that's my base of like not, from my childhood.
And do you know that people weren't accepting of you, or was this maybe your perception of it, or what did that look like?
I think that the stuff that happened definitely earlier on, like 3rd through 8th grade, which was true non-acceptance, and then I went to a new high school, and then I just assumed...
What was the true non-acceptance?
Like, okay, so like in 3rd grade, I switched schools.
That's
and I went to... So there's this Jewish day school, and before I joined, they like had me go in for a day to make sure that, you know, like I got along with everything. So it's my first day in this classroom, full of 3rd graders, and I go to the front of the class, and, you know, I go to introduce myself. And I'm like, hi, my name is Daniel, blah, blah, blah. And the teacher's like, actually, Daniel, there's like 5 Daniels in this class. Do you have like a nickname we can call you by? I'm like, yeah, you can call me Kel, because I love orange soda. Like, I loved Keenan and Kel, right? So that was the first thing. And they're like, oh, cool. And anything else? I'm like, yeah, I also love Lucy. Like, I Love Lucy was my favorite show. And every week I would write these like mini episodes, right? And then act them out for my parents.
So you wrote spec scripts?
I wrote spec scripts in 3rd grade. Yeah, pretty much.
Oh my God.
So I'd be like, Lucy, I'm home. Oh, Ricky. Like, it was this whole, like, and I go, and I'm telling the teacher in the class, yeah, I do this and I perform for my parents every week. If you want, I could do one for the class, right? So I'm sitting in the classroom, right? And she's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And she probably thinks it's going to be like a quick thing. No. It was like a 7-minute performance, right? Where like Lucy and Ricky go to Cuba and it's a whole thing. And then I get done and she's like, all right. And I just see a sea of 3rd graders look at me like, who the fuck is this kid?
I can't believe you did that. That was the funniest thing I've ever heard.
So then I go and I sit down, and that night the principal calls my mom, right? And the principal, you know, just to see how the day went, she goes, look, I just don't think that Daniel's going to be a very good fit.
What?
Right? Now keep in mind, there was a kid in the grade above, or the grade below, who had Down syndrome, right? Which, nothing against that, like, I'm phenomenal, and he was the sweetest kid. He was okay. I couldn't go to the school because I loved Lucy too much. Right? Like, that was... Do
you think that they perceive that as you having, like, some sort of, you know, social integration problem, or...
Maybe. But, like, but even so, like, let's just say it was not, like, the most socially normative behavior, right? Like, it was clearly a school that was accepting to people from all walks, which is beautiful. You know what I mean?
Maybe they thought you should go to a performer school.
I don't think that's what it was, because my mom told me that, you know, I had too much energy, was what the principal said.
Oh, okay.
Right? That I was too energetic. But like, if you go to that school, you know, it was just like, so that was just like my base, was just like, I mean, that was like an adult of the school being like, no. But then my mom talked her into letting me go to the school, right? So I'm in the school, and keep in mind, like, now I'm going to school with these kids whose first impression of me was, Lucy, I'm home, all right. So, like, it just didn't go well, and then I switched schools in 7th grade, and I went to another school.
It didn't go well. What does that mean? Did you have friends, or?
I had one friend, Michael Davis, who was like a bad boy. Like, he came to school on, was it Halloween or was it Purim? Because Purim is when you also dress up in costumes. He came dressed as a pimp in 4th grade. So he was a pimp in 4th grade. This is also the kid that one time I stayed over at his house, and his parents were like, hey, you need to clean up. And he goes, fuck you, Mom.
Whoa.
In like 4th grade. And I'm like, what is happening? And yeah. So, like, that was my one friend.
That's cool that he liked you. I mean, but yeah.
But even then, but there was always like, but he would always bully me, sort of, in the friendship, like, scenario. You know what I mean? Like, I think there was definitely something like, from what I remember, like, he could control me.
I saw a movie about that once.
So, like, Ran into him the other day. He seems really great. Really nice guy. You know? I ran into him like I don't know, 2 months ago or something.
Really?
Yeah, just here in LA.
What's he doing now?
I don't know. I was leaving an
It's like I work with children.
I work with children. Yeah, no. But so there was that, and then I switched schools again, 7th grade, and then 7th and 8th grade wasn't great either. I went to this private school with these kids that weren't very nice. I was talking about this yesterday, where I have a memory of this kid, Alex, that he you know, because I'm Mexican and I'm Jewish. And I distinctly remember him saying, "Hey, Beaner, go mow my lawn," and then threw a penny at me and goes, "And here's a penny, you Jew," right? And this is like in LA, right?
Wow.
Yeah,
really
which he really
It
hit.
sounds like he put some thought into this.
Yeah, put some thought into it. So I
props
tried
and
to
everything.
stand up for myself.
Good.
And I'm not like a fighter at all, but I pushed him, and then he shoved me, and there was like, it wasn't a fight. It was just like, I'm standing up to you. It was like also delayed. It wasn't even in the moment. It was like I was like thinking about it, and then I went to it was one of those periods where it's just like study hall, whatever. And I did that. Then we both got in trouble, and then I told the principal what he had said. Then everyone ganged up on me for ratting him out, right? But then we both got detention because I had like shoved him. And you're like not supposed to shove anyone. And you know, like, and then I was like the kid who ratted him out, even though I ratted him out for saying something incredibly bigoted. But that didn't matter. So then I just wasn't, and then I was also like this like romantic kid who like I loved love since I was like a child. Like that's been my dream, is to like be in love. So I was like writing poems and bringing, like there was a girl I had a crush on. I wrote her a poem, brought her a necklace from a beach in Mexico, and I was like, "Oh, will you love me?" Like I was that.
That is so adorable.
Right. One time, there was a girl I had a crush on. She didn't go to school with me, but I really had a crush on her. And one time I left her a voicemail. I was like 12. Where I sang the entirety of "You Should Let Me Love You" by Mario a cappella on her voicemail. Just straight, "You should let me love you."
Wow.
Let me
And you were
be the
12?
one to... And I was 12.
It sounds like you had a timing issue. Like you didn't know when. Do you run the light now as a comedian?
No. I respect the light. But so I was this thing that
You're a performer.
Yeah, but like not good either. Like that's another thing too.
Well,
is that
it's
like
the passion and like how long you stay with it and you hone your skills. No one could ever deny that you were meant to do this, so that's a plus.
Yeah. So no, they totally could. But that's a whole other thing.
Oh wow! It sounds like you have a lot of deep-rooted issues to where this kind of manifests with your social interactions today.
And it all manifests from a lack of confidence in myself.
Well, I think that based on what you experienced, the first part of having an adult, reject you, and, when you're a kid, an adult is like the end-all be-all of authority, and this is like a principal person calling your mom and telling her this. The book I'm reading now, Healing Codes, it talks about we have these cellular memories, and they're stored at the age in which they happened. So it's not adult Daniel having the memory of being a kid and this happening and looking at it from an adult perspective. It's 4th grade Daniel having that memory and taking that in.
Right. Because yeah, I can definitely see that. Because it was, I think for me too, the way I processed it was a place that I saw was accepting of everyone, right? I saw was like, it doesn't matter whether you have some sort of like a learning disability or not, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you're quote unquote, societally normal or not. That doesn't matter. We'll accept you no matter what, was the whole like philosophy of this place. No matter who you are. And yet I was just being me.
Was that the philosophy of the place?
But that's what it was on the surface.
Okay.
That's
Was it? Just like...
I think that's...
was that your perception?
Well, I think that was my perception. You know, I mentioned the kid in the grade
Right.
below who had Down syndrome. The whole idea there, and like the reason that I point that out was like, here was a place that was saying, hey, we will accept and we will love no matter what, and we will teach you and educate you no matter what, right?
Yeah.
And we will adapt to you, and that is beautiful, right? And yet I was like, I'm seeing that, and I'm like, well, I'm just doing my thing. Now, maybe my thing was a distraction.
Well,
right?
Also, I want to say, too, you don't know what the process was like or who that kid was to where he was in there.
No, 1,000%.
Right?
No,
so
for sure. I'm talking as a child.
Exactly.
This is what I'm thinking as a child.
Right.
As an adult looking back, look.
What do you think of it now as an adult looking back? That's a great question.
As an adult looking back, I think...
Objectively,
I was probably just a kid with a ton of energy, and they were like, hey, he's probably going to be a distraction. Right? That's probably what it was. I know what I was as a kid. I was very... I was definitely like, I had a lot of energy. I needed the attention. I felt like I needed attention. I always wanted to like perform whatever. I can see where they look at that and they think, oh yeah, that kid's going to be a distraction, right? For sure, right? And that's totally on them, right? I don't necessarily know if I agreed with that. And obviously, in the end, I ended up going to the school. But that was something that as a kid, I remember, like, it goes back to the whole, like, something happened and then analyzing it. I remember as a child, right, those were the thoughts I was having. I go to this place, and I see this place that's really accepting, and I think it's awesome, and I think it's great, and I'm just myself. And then, like, well, but not that, right? That's the way that I saw it as a kid.
So do you feel that impacts your social interactions now, where you're like, I don't want to be...
fully me?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to an extent, yeah. But I've worked on it, right? And
what have you done?
I think it's a lot of reflection, and it's just a lot of in real time practice.
Okay.
And it's catching myself when I'm having these sort of like similar thought patterns or playing out the same thing, right? Because that's all it comes down to is I'm just playing out that third grade memory, right?
When you have a picture of that memory in your mind, what is happening in that picture?
I'm just in the next room listening in on the conversation with my mom, talking to the principal.
Okay.
You know, and then her telling me what the principal said.
And when you think of that memory, how does that feel?
It makes me feel rejected.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it makes me feel like I'm not worthy of being accepted, just no matter who I am, right? You know, it's this kind of like everyone is beautiful and everyone is worthy of being educated and accepted, which I believe in, right? But not you. So that's where that kind of, yeah.
I think that memory is still like very, I hate to use this word, but I can't think of any other one right now, like triggering for you. Like it still gets you like on an emotional level. And I think because that is so high that anytime you have a social interaction now, your mind subconsciously is automatically reverting back to that, and you're having that feeling again that comes up. So I think a good place to start would be to rehash that memory and get to a place where the emotional volume on it isn't as high. And I think that could help with the present day social interactions. Because at the end of the day, if your conscious mind wants to change a habit or do anything, your subconscious mind could have a different agenda, and that subconscious mind is always going to trump your conscious mind, despite your best efforts.
Yeah.
So my prescription to you...
Yeah.
I don't want you to read the healing codes or look into how to reframe that initial memory and get it down to... a at a lower emotional volume. And that doesn't mean replaying it. I'm trying to think what you could do that wouldn't be the healing codes to get that volume down. Has there been anything, a memory that you've had recently to where like you were upset about it and then now you look back at it and you don't feel anything for it?
Yeah, most.
You were upset initially and then it cooled down?
Yeah. But also, like, the time for me being upset to cooling down has gone down substantially, because now every time that I start to, like, heat up at all, right, or feel anything, I have these questions and thoughts that I just, like, put the situation through.
What are the questions?
The questions just go, I mean, more or less, like, okay, let's just say a situation, right? I'll be like, all right, can you control it? Right? The answer is no, right? B, does it really matter? Right? And then ultimately, are you going to be okay even if it's the worst version of whatever you think it is? And once I go through those three, right? Once I go, I don't have control, right? It really doesn't matter. But it probably isn't anything. It probably isn't the thing that you think it is. But even if it is that thing, right? Does it really matter? Am I going to die? Is anything going to happen? And the answer is no, right? Right? The answer is no. And
does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
It
helps bring things down. So
it doesn't prevent it from happening, but once it happens, you can kind of run it through that test and...
Yeah, but I think doing it also lowers the frequency with which it happens. Like, I'm also not realizing, like, oh, it didn't happen that time. You know, it just doesn't happen. So the frequency with which it happens goes down. It's like anxiety attacks, right? Like, I don't notice when I don't have an anxiety attack, right? Like, when I normally would. So let's say I normally have...
Have you had anxiety attacks?
Yeah, I deal with anxiety attacks. But, like, through therapy, have gone down in frequency. But it's just, like, I don't... At first, it would be like, oh, I'm able to, like, manage it before I get there. And now, it's, like, probably more so, like, my mind isn't starting to go down the path to the point where it would happen.
I wonder if you can do that with that old memory that's still so charged, if you could go through there. But it's so hard because you're still child version of Daniel when that happens.
And child version isn't able to be objective and rational.
Yeah, he doesn't read self-help books. He doesn't know the questions.
Child Daniel's still looking outside of himself, right? And is looking outwards, right?
Cool. I've got another idea. And this has helped me. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
But my idea is so important. I've done this before when I've felt like my inner child being triggered, like trying to be an adult, soothing that version of me, like imagining what I looked like and who I was as a kid and what I was feeling, and imagining the adult comforting me and saying, it's okay, everything's fine, you didn't do anything wrong, you're okay. And for some reason that tends to help too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to picture yourself hugging your child self. But, I mean, it's worth a try.
Yeah. You know, and
so, in addition to doing the questions with something, that could be just like another tool that you have, like, in your belt, in addition to the questions that might be soothing.
Right.
So, and also with anxiety attacks, I used to have those too. And the weirdest thing that helped me with that was knowing that it was an anxiety attack.
Yes.
It was the craziest thing. I'm like, I need to drink water and go outside. I'm having an anxiety attack.
Yeah, well, oh man. So I was in Portland, and I was at a Denny's, and I was having an anxiety attack just in the...
That makes sense.
In the booth. I was just like, someone was on the outside of the booth, and on the inside of the booth, and I'm like, starting to feel it. I'm like, you know, guys, I just need to go outside for a second. So I go outside of the Denny's, and I sit on a bench right in front of, like, the windows. And so there's a window right behind my head, right? And I'm sitting there, and I close my eyes, and I start meditating, right? And, you know, I'm counting my breaths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm maybe, like, on the third round. 1, 2, 3. I hear a loud thud next to my ear. A fucking crow flew into the window
No.
And it fell on my shoulder.
Ew.
And then I go, ah! And I freak out, right? And then I look, and then the crow it's getting its kind of like thing back together.
Crows are huge.
And then it just flies off, and I go, what the fuck? I was like finally like really calming down, and then this fucking crow just kept going, oh, that can't be a good sign.
It was a sign that like life happens and crows will fly into windows. That's so gross. Was it heavy?
Yes, I felt it. I was so glad that it didn't like touch my. I felt like its wing touched my neck, and I'm also like kind of a hypochondriac. I was like, oh, I gotta wash my neck, man.
I would
like,
do the same thing.
Yeah, like I don't know
birds
where
have diseases.
Yeah, what the fuck? Yeah,
gross.
Ooh, it still gives me a little.
That would be traumatic.
But
so how are you now when you see crows?
Oh, I don't know. That's fine. That's like
They're so big. They freak me out. Just
I don't feel like I feel like birds are so distant and always like separate. Like I've never really up close with a bird. I think that's why it was so weird.
So also too with your memory of like your vision of the birds, they're very small away, like far away in your mind's eye.
But then you see one right next to it, it's big, man.
But I was just like pulling it back to like the imagination of a memory, like physically looking at that picture. If you shrink it in your mind, it's like an NLP thing. Have you heard of that? Neuro-linguistic programming. Shrinking it in your mind is supposed to make that memory not as strong.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's this exercise you could do where you look at, like, say you have a negative memory of, like, the kid on the phone. And so you have that in the forefront. And then in the top, like, left or right-hand corner of that memory, you have, like, a happy memory. Maybe a memory that's opposite of that, like where you felt really accepted and really loved. And then you snap your finger and you switch places with those memories. So then the loved, accepted memory is in the forefront, bigger, and then the memory of being rejected is smaller in the upper left or right hand corner. And then it just gets smaller and smaller, and that one gets bigger and bigger. It's supposed to help.
Oh, cool.
So
I'll try that out.
There's that.
I'll try. I'll meditate on that.
Okay. Yeah, meditate on that. Read the healing codes.
Cool.
Because it's really cool, especially when it comes to like those memories. And also the premise behind that book is those destructive cellular memories, because we have like our cells have memories. And so what makes you sick or gives you any like issues in life is caused by the stress in those cells, and they deactivate the healing that your body can naturally do. And so when you heal it at a smaller level, it'll manifest in different ways in your life. Like maybe it'll clear up a stomach issue you have, or like a asthma, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And another way to do it is like look at like a physical symptom that you're already having. Like, do you have any physical symptoms?
Oh, like when I have anxiety attacks?
It could be like troubled breathing or skin rash. Like I did it for like the skin thing that I've had on my legs for like a few months.
Yeah, I get like itchy.
Yeah. Well, skin stuff is supposed to be like related to maybe like depression or something like that.
Oh, really?
So when you you think back about how you feel about having the itchy skin. How do you feel about having the itchy skin? Uncomfortable. Okay, so then you think back to like an earlier memory, maybe the first time you felt uncomfortable, and you rate both of, like you're uncomfortable now, you rate it to like on a scale of 1 to 10, and then you go back to your earliest memory of feeling uncomfortable and you rate that on a scale of 1 to 10, and then you say this like prayer, and then you do these different hand positions, and it's like supposed to like over time be healing or sometimes immediate.
Oh.
I always like unplugging the latest book I'm reading, so that's a healing code. So look that up.
Okay.
I've been doing it, and I think it's working.
Yeah, great.
Even if it's a placebo effect, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It still works.
Placebo effect still in effect?
What?
Placebo effect is still in effect?
It sure is.
Sure is.
And it just proves how strong your mind is.
Yeah.
Which kind of supports the idea in the first place, right?
Right.
So anyway, that's going to be it for our therapy portion of this podcast. Do you have any takeaways?
I'm gonna do the enlarging and minimizing thing.
Okay.
I really like that. But I think the bigger takeaway, which I find interesting, is that that memory from 3rd grade. You're right. I think that's something that I gloss over a lot, because it sounds like just like, oh, it's a funny story. I mean, just like perform it, whatever. But really breaking it down, I talk about it in the same way that I experienced it. Like the perspective of me talking about it is still me as a kid. The way that I saw it, and me trying to rationalize it, and from like a very innocent like perspective, you know, and not being objective, and also like idealistic perspective. You know, it's this idea, you know, going back to it, where it's like, oh, this was a place that I thought would like accept everyone, no matter what, right?
And you don't know how many phone calls that principal was making that day for different kids. They could have had a population problem.
Well, I don't know.
You don't know what it was.
There's no.
Exactly.
There's no.
But
I don't know
kid,
what. But as
you don't have that ability to.
You don't have that ability
think about
think about those things.
Right.
So you're just like, oh, it's me. And I think that's the thing too, is that like I know, like I have my own sort of like things that I don't know what it would, but like I've never been able to like, especially growing up, like I didn't have an ability to like be normal, or like be able to even like pretend. Like I was always just like being weird, or like
I love that.
You know, it's like that was just who I was, and I wasn't. I never. I always found myself hitting a wall when it came to being accepted in that way, and
like Rudolph.
Oh yeah.
And now you're in a profession where everyone's like, "Cool, the weirder you are,
exactly.
the better."
So that's the beauty of it. But looking back, yeah, I think I still look at it from this kind of like idealistic, like hopeful standpoint of like going into it, where it was like, oh, here was this place that was accepting of everyone, right? And it's always really interesting, the things that you take notice of, right? Because I for me, coming from a place of like, I think every human is beautiful and has value and has the potential for doing good no matter what, especially like at a young age, you know, I saw this place, I was like, oh, here's a place that like seems to be doing that, so I should be able to belong. And I think that's why I go back to that kid, right? Because to that kid, especially as a kid, right, and seeing that like kids can be mean and people can be mean depending on like who you are.
It's like a loss of innocence, really.
Right, yeah. So like I saw that, I was like, oh, that's so beautiful. Right? It was really a loss of innocence, because it was, oh, here's a kid that society, right? Certain people in society look at as being different, right? Or maybe, you know, or like, oh, poor kid or whatever, right? Even though like there's a kid who's like super happy, right? And there's beauty in that. And this school is like, we want to teach you, we want to educate you, and we want you to be a part of this community. And I'm like, that's fucking awesome. I think that's what, as a kid, I saw the kid.
But as an adult, you don't know the circumstances behind any of that.
Oh, exactly.
Right.
I don't know any of that. But once again, this is all from the kid's perspective,
exactly.
from the kid brain, right? And then I go in and I'm like, oh, I should be good, right? And then they're like, no. And I'm like, but what about him? So all I'm doing is comparing that situation to my situation, which goes back to the whole idea of like, you can't compare yourself to other people because you don't know what their situation is, you don't know what they went through, you don't know the context of that, you don't know.
And that's a good perspective too. When you have in present day, when you have an interaction where you're like, I hope that didn't come off as weird or whatever. Another tool in the like, I can't control what people think of me is the what is it? The idea that, God, what were we talking about? I totally forgot what it was. The last point you made. I'm sorry.
Oh, you can't. Oh, I'm saying that like you just don't know, right? You don't know what that person's story is. You don't know what the context of another person's situation is. You don't know what the principal's day was like that day. You don't know what's going on in the school. There's a million different things going on and a million different variables.
I can't remember.
Oh, is that not what it was?
I don't know.
Sorry.
I had like this big aha moment, which happens to me a lot, and then I forget stuff, which is why I interrupt people so much, because I'm like, I better say this unless I forget. But I definitely did forget that time.
Oh,
so.
All good. But yeah,
I hope that helped.
No, yeah, that was great. Look at that. I came in a little hungover. I feel like it's gone now.
Really?
Yeah, look at that.
Oh my God.
Just a little...
All right. Well, that's the end of our therapy portion for real this time. And when we come back, we're going to talk to David about his Or not David.
Daniel.
David's coming later.
David's coming later.
Just kidding. There is no
There's
David.
no David? Okay, cool.
Wow,
cool.
look at me. I'm all over the place now.
Oh, man, I'm going to overthink that. What does she mean, David? What is she doing? I'm just kidding.
Wow, that's so weird. Okay, well, thanks for listening to this part. When we come back, we're going to talk about Daniel's writing process when we come back on A Little Advice.
Thanks again for listening to the Little Advice podcast. This is just a friendly reminder that if you haven't already, please rate us 5 stars and leave a little review and sub to the podcast and share your favorite episode. If you leave a little review, I'll give you a little shout out. Also, if you'd like to see me do comedy in person, I will be at Crackers in Indianapolis the weekend of Thursday, November 28th. I'll be featuring for the hilarious Jordan Carlos. Come by, say hi. Oh, and if you do, I made these little advice pins. And if you say that you heard about the show from the podcast, I'm going to give you a little pin. And they're so cute. Okay, enjoy the rest of the show.
And we are back, a bathroom break later with Daniel Weingarten.
There we go.
Not
Yay.
David. I don't even know how to edit that out, so please just forgive me.
Yo, you're forgiven.
Anybody.
For some reason, I thought you were talking to the audience.
I
when you said that.
was, but then I looked at you.
And then you looked at me, I was like, oh no, was she talking to me? Yeah, for sure. And then I was like, I need to respond now.
Thank you for walking
Social cues.
That process. Hey, I do faux pas all the time, and I'm just like, well, it is what it is. And that's a defense mechanism, but whatever.
Interesting.
Anyway, so I want to ask you, you're a writer. It seems like you write a lot, and more than I even realized. So, and you make funny videos, you do stand-up. Talk me through one of your creative processes, the one you want to talk about the most. Coming up with ideas.
Yeah. I mean, I try to write every day.
What does that look like? Is it part of your morning routine?
Yeah, so I'll do I got my pages, which is just I'll just kind of reflect or just free write or, whatever kind of comes to me.
And that's from The Artist's Way. But
From
he
The
hasn't read
Artist's
it,
Way.
but still.
I have not, but
you took that tool.
I took that tool. And then I will, normally have some there's administrative work that I have to do that I try to get out of the way.
Great.
I'll either do that right after, and then if it's
Is that
a little more,
booking shows, working on your website?
yeah, emails, stuff like that. And then I've been better about just picking one creative task a day to work on. Because I used to be I have to do these 5 things. So I have to edit my podcast, I have to work on the script, and I got to write some new jokes, and it's
yeah,
it's too much, and and then you just get overwhelmed very easily, and it's and then I have to make a video. So it's no, what can I actually do well? It's not to do a lot, but it's to just do the things well. And some days I do that better than others, but I just kind of choose, and sometimes I'll just be what's inspiring me today, or what feels pressing, or what feels like the thing that I need to do today. So I think it's kind of that merging of what I'm emotionally kind of inspired by, mixed with logistically, needing.
Right, what's the most urgent?
Right, yeah.
Okay, cool. And so with the idea first of all, I love your schedule. I love that you have such a
yeah, it sounds better than what it may look like in practice. Some days it looks great, and then there's some days that are not great.
Well, I think it's important to have something like that, because in this business we are entrepreneurs, and we really need to look at our lives as that, and we're working from home. It's hard to focus and get things done that we want to get done. So,
right.
And it's cool that you look at one project at a time and take that on. That's really hard, because as creative people, we're often scatterbrained and I have to do everything, and then I want to write a song, and then I want to do this.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So in terms of idea generation, how do you ever have a day where you're okay, I'm going to work on stand-up jokes today. These are some ideas I had, or this is what I do to generate ideas. How does that work for you?
With the stand-up stuff, I normally, it's that thing where I'll just, if I come up with a premise or an idea, I'll write that down, and then I'll just kind of take a premise and just free write on it. and then just kind of see what comes out, and then go back and try to find like the funny stuff in it, and then create. I normally like overwrite my jokes and then like dwindle down from there. My big thing is I always try to like make things longer than they probably should be, and then I try to think like, what's the short version? What's the succinct version? What do I actually need to get this joke across, and then move on? What's the point of the joke?
So you physically write.
I physically
jokes.
write. Yeah. I know there's people that like riff on stage.
Yeah,
that's
what Anye did the last episode. He riffs on stage.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I just write on stage. I mean, there's stuff that comes to me on stage, and occasionally like it'll be like a tag, or just like I'll go off on a little riff or whatever, but that's not the main way in which I get my material out. I normally feel a lot better if I've written it down at least, and at least have, because then I at least know where I'm starting and where I'm ending and where I'm going, and I can take some detours along the way, especially if it's new. I'll like maybe not have it all in my head, and then I'll forget something, and then I'll have to like fill that gap in. But I know where the next thing is, and then maybe that just gets me something funnier. So it really all depends.
Plus, if you have that problem of like trimming the fat, it's probably easier to trim it before you get on stage and like riff on it or whatever.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
What about, do you write scripts?
Yes, I write scripts.
Okay,
and
so
then,
how does that work?
I normally just, I'll come up with an idea, and then I'll outline it, and then once I outline it, I'll beat it out and just kind of and slug it out. No, I was like, why was she laughing? And then I was like, oh, okay. No,
She
yeah.
was a child.
I'll slug it out, and so just kind of putting, scene by scene, and whatever scene kind of looks like, and then I'll just start writing. What ends up happening is I'm really not great at doing things before they need to be done, and I'm really good at. I think my creativity really gets triggered when I like have a deadline, or like I have something. I think I had a show at the Improv like 2 months ago, and I like wrote like a brand new 15 the morning of, and did like a brand new 15. Like I did a 40-minute set, and like 15 minutes of it was like stuff that I'd written that morning, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And it was like fine, and of that 15, maybe like 7 is still around, but like. Yeah,
that's pretty.
But then I'll find myself like not being like, that's what I'm saying.
Present.
Where like it's not like every day I'm like, well, no, that's not true. It's like I'll like pump out this 15, and then I'll work on that 15 over the next like month or so. But like the initial burst of it all is like very big.
I think that's really brave to like write a new 15 or even a new couple minute jokes and do it on stage that night, because I have memory issues when it comes to like, how did I want to word this?
Oh, right.
Specifically.
Yeah. Well, I think it kind of goes back to
I have to do it in like small little bits when I try it.
I think it goes back to like the same thing with acting, where it's just like you just like prepare, and then you just have to like throw it all the work away, and then you just have faith that it's there. So that's. But with the scripts, it's the same thing. Like I get really inspired, and then I'll just knock out.
Is there anything that inspires you, or like that you do, maybe just input wise, that tends to lead to more inspiration, like going on walks or doing whatever people do to get inspired?
Yeah, showers are good. I like showers a lot. Showers, walks, music. Music really does it for me. I tend to like always. I think about, if I'm writing something, I try to think like. Especially if I'm writing like a sequence of shots, or if there's.
Do you direct as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then I if there's something that feels very like musical to me, like a sequence, then I'll find the song that I see that playing under, and then I'll write to the music. So then I can kind of like. I'm like, oh yeah, we go from like this to that to this to that, and it's like there's like
your
a
brain
rhythm.
Is like boom 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 boom.
Right,
boom,
yeah.
boom.
And then same thing goes if there's like a super like dramatic scene, then I'll like go and I know the tone of whatever I'm writing, so then I'll go find like a score that is in the ballpark of what the tone I'm writing is, and then I'll find the 3-minute piece that goes with like a breakup scene, and then I'll kind of have that playing, or I'll just play something like operatic or something like.
Love you.
You should let me love you. Let me be the one to give
and
you everything.
And this is the portion where he sings the whole song. Keep going.
Baby, good love and protection. Make me your selection. Baby, I never forgot the words.
All right.
I forgot the words. I forgot. You kind of, I just keep going. Oh, it's third grade all over again.
No.
It's third grade all over again.
No, you sang the song when you were 12.
No, I know, but me performing for way too long. Buddy, keep it short, you know?
I'm noticing a theme.
Yeah.
Okay. What else was I going to ask you about? Okay, because I know you're crunched on time because you're a volunteer and you're a good person. We get it.
No, I'm not.
Oh, yeah, you're a terrible person. I forgot. So, before one of the biggest successes in your life, career-wise or otherwise, can you think of a mental shift you had before that, if any?
Yeah, like actually doing work.
Go on.
Because I think there was a lot of time where I was just kind of doing it.
What was the success, and then what was the work?
Oh, what was the success? The success was probably starting to like build an audience online.
That's hard to do.
And then like being able, and then like the first time I did a show and people like showed up. Like
oh
that
my
was
God,
that
what
was
that like?
that was
so
really
cool.
like weird and cool, and it was like, oh, you're here to see me. That's why what? Like I still don't. I mean, I still live with the whole thing that like because I wasn't a funny kid at all, and like I wasn't like a funny guy, and I don't think I'm a particularly like funny guy. So like I always feel like people are gonna like see me for the fraud that I am on stage.
A lot of people have imposter syndrome.
Yeah, so like the imposter syndrome is strong, but then it was just like I think the shift was like, oh, if people are gonna come and see you, then and they deserve a good show, so you need to work hard to make sure that you give them a good show. So you need to put in the work. But then the other one is I made that my first feature with my girlfriend Zoe and with Michael like a year ago. So like that
is that out? I want to see it.
It's not out. We're still waiting for the first round of submissions to hear back. But for me that was like, oh, this is how much work it takes to actually do something well and correctly. And
did you whittle that down to an amount of time or amount of effort?
What do you mean?
In terms of like, this is how much work it takes to get something.
I mean, thousands of hours. Maybe 1,000. Maybe like like I mean, I don't know how many.
10,000.
I mean, we worked a long because like I mean, if I took the amount of time that we spent writing and then shooting it, and then the amount of time I spent editing it, and the amount of time that we spent.
You edited it?
I edited it.
Wow.
Yeah, and then like the amount of time we spent mixing the audio and then doing the color and then like all that like. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's thousands of decisions. It's for sure thousands of decisions. And then to just like do this one thing that in the grand scheme of like all of art created is so incredibly small and infinitesimal. It just makes you realize like, oh, when things do stand out amidst that like the massive amount of art that is out there, in order for it to stand out, it takes a ridiculous attention to detail paired with immense work and commitment to that work in order for it to actually not only exist, but to succeed in its existence. And by success, I mean finding an audience.
Wow. So when you found your audience with online, that people started coming to your shows, was there a shift before that, or was there anything that you did differently, or was it consistency? Like, what would you attribute that to?
Probably just a decision, like an active decision. Well, I got laid off from a job, and then I soon after that I was on unemployment, and then I had like 6 months where I didn't drink. So I stopped drinking, and then I just became very focused, and I was just like, it was just like do, and it was just like I guess you just have to like see that goal, and then know that like I need to work to get there and actively do the work.
So the goal that you saw was building an audience?
The goal, it wasn't even like that tangible, to be honest. The goal that I saw was like, I just need to do. The goal was actually just doing the work.
Just the process.
Was the action of like consistently doing the work. which I have to remind myself of now, because I think it's funny, within like some success, then, or, as small as it can be, complacency, the risk of complacency becomes real. So, and the risk of like becoming passive, then you stop doing the things that got you to that success, which is I think it's like human nature. It's like, oh, I'm here, so I can like chill out. It's like, no, you got to like double down now.
Do you feel like the consistency you had in building the audience is the same type of structure that you have now in terms of meditating, writing every day, working on one project at a time?
Yes, yeah, because then it was but then you just have to prioritize. So it's like there's different things that I do. If it's like, all right, you have the stuff that you do online, and then you have like working on your stand up, and then you have like writing scripts, and then you have just like your the work that you're doing on yourself. You have to you do have to prioritize it, because you can't do all four of those at a high level at the same time. Like every day, you can't work on all of those every day. So it's like, what's important today? And let me just like focus on that. But there's moments where I find myself, I'm like, I've been slacking, or I need to like get back on it. And you're going through the same process, or things don't excite you as much anymore. So you have to find ways to like make them exciting again.
So it sounds like your process, like your mental shift before your big successes, is just knowing that you have to put in a lot of hard work, like really consistent work on a regular basis, and focus your energy.
Yeah.
Right?
Pretty much.
That sounds pretty basic, but it's also so true.
I think it's all pretty basic. Like it's not, it's not like, I mean, it's kind of the whole thing, like when people ask how you lose weight, it's like,
Eat healthy
and exercise, you know what I mean? And obviously, like, there's exceptions and people, but like...
But I think there's a lot to that, to where people sabotage on different levels. So I think that's why it seems so difficult if you've got, like, your subconscious working against you or whatever.
Yeah, but there's also, like...
Oh, God. Okay, but I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know you have to go.
Yeah, but I was just going to say, real quick, before I head out, I think it also goes back to, like, that... I think there are a lot of people, and I'm myself included, that doubt whether they are worthy of success, right? And when you doubt whether you are worthy of success, I think that's where that self-sabotage comes from. Because I think a part of you is like, well, is the work even worth it? Because I'm not worthy of achieving the success that the work is supposedly going to take me to. So then you stop doing the work. Right, because what's the point? But really all you're doing is you're keeping yourself from having the chance to ever have that success.
So how do you get over that hurdle? Because you said that you have that as well.
Right, yeah. You just have to.
Did you change your belief that you were worthy of success, or did you just keep working in spite of it?
I still battle with it. So it's just working in spite of it. It's like moments where you're like, what's the point? I should just quit. Being like, just keep going. You know what I mean? Just like you're kind of like, you're being the guy who's like, just look, I know you don't believe it, but just keep going.
Do you think that's where your self-work comes in and helps?
Yes. So that's where the self-work is just going to feed the other stuff, because I think in order for the true jump to happen, there needs to be like a true belief in one's not only like ability to succeed, but being worthy of that success. There's people that are capable of succeeding and actually do the work to succeed, but then there's an even greater level of success. It's kind of those, I mean, I see those people all the time where it's like, shouldn't you be doing more? Right? But like, even like successful people, like, I mean, but like they're making, $250,000 a year, right? And you're like, I mean, I know you're doing really well, and maybe like you're very happy with that, and you are happy with that, but there's something outside looking in. I'm like, I feel like you're capable of being like great, and you're really, really successful and really good, right? But what's that thing that keeps, I guess my question is always like, what's the difference between somebody who is great, right? And really breaks through on a massive scale, and somebody who does well for themselves, right? And doesn't matter as long as you're happy within that level that you're at. Because I think that's another thing that's an outside looking in, which kind of goes back to the therapy section of it, is you're putting your own perceptions of what success looks like on another person. And, your own perceptions of their talent on another person, where they should be versus where they are. But it's like, you don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Like, that's another thing where, like, there's the mind doing the thing, and then you catch yourself. It's like, all right, well, I'm saying that, but, like, that person might be very happy.
Maybe they're
content. And they're content, and they don't need more. Yeah. They don't need more success.
I think it's hard, too, because, like, as humans, I think our natural inclination is growth.
Right.
So it's hard to imagine. Just like with cells, it's like things just grow and expand, and it's hard to just think about being complacent. But maybe they're growing their life in another area that you wouldn't see necessarily.
Right.
That doesn't have to do with how much they're making.
1,000%.
So
yeah, and that's just the kind of like that surface level stuff where, you know, I mean, and there's been times where like things have, and then it's also like the reality versus the perception of things where like, I don't know if I you know, it's like, I know what my life looks like. I don't know what everyone's perceptions of it is. But I know there's people out there that perceive my life vastly different than what it actually is. That's just the nature of the beast, right? Because everyone has misperceptions about other people. That's just fact. So that I find really interesting. So but then that goes back to like, well, you know.
You can't control how people...
Well, you can't control how people think. But also, like, that's where, like, just, like, I think being vulnerable and being as vulnerable as possible and transparent as possible just in life is only of great benefit to yourself. Because the more I mean, or I guess it depends, but, like, for me at least, the more transparent and vulnerable I can be, right, about my flaws and my insecurities and my doubts and my fears, as well as like my confidences and all that. It's like, it's less. It's more freeing because I'm not actively trying to hide those things. It takes more work to hide those things than to just let them be out there.
That's why I found it so admirable of you as a kid, just being unapologetically yourself. It's like,
but as I grew older, I started hiding it.
Yeah,
you know. So I started, and going back to that third grade thing. That's where it started. That's where let's start hiding.
Yeah.
And then so even when I was like as a performer, like I started doing before I did stand up, I did slam poetry, and I like competed. I did slam.
Wow.
But like when I started doing slam, I would put on a voice. Let's go ahead and go down the streets to somewhere where maybe somebody, because I would have other poets that are like New York poets, and this is how they talk. So maybe if I did my poetry like this, then people will accept me because great poets that I accept talk like this.
That's so cool.
And then people will be like, hey man, you don't talk like that. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? So my parents tell me they want me to marry a nice Jewish girl. And it's like, bro. All right. I need to get going.
I just want to say too that Claudia had a similar story when she was auditioning. Her boyfriend at the time would tell her that she was doing like a fake voice when she was acting, and then she finally quit doing that voice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
So that's something you guys can talk about.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming.
This was so much fun.
So fantastic.
Sorry I had to bounce out.
Totally get it. You're an important person.
No. I just have to. I don't want to let the child down.
You can't let the children down. It's about you need to let them accept themselves.
Yes.
So thank you guys so much. Where can people find you?
Oh, at DW Comedy.
At DW Comedy, and you guys, if you like this, and even if you don't, please give it 5 stars, share it, rate it, comment, leave a review. Thank you so much for listening to